What's going on YouTube? JT is Reborn here, and welcome back to another edition of my Monarch Legacy of Monsters reviews. In this video, we're going to talk about episode 10, known as Beyond Logic. This one is written by Chris Black and directed by Andy Goddard, and this is the final episode of Season 1, and I'm going to say right out the gate, they most certainly stuck the landing with this one. I thought this was a fantastic closure to Season 1. It was emotional, it was epic, and it leaves me excited for where they could potentially go with a Season 2. And we get some awesome Godzilla stuff, we get some awesome Kurt Russell stuff, and we get some other awesome stuff too, which I'll get into in a second. But wow, can't believe we're here at the end of this thing. Now, from here on out, it's just going to be Godzilla Kong the New Empire hype, but I really want to emphasize that I think this was the best episode in the show, and I really enjoyed covering Monarch Legacy of Monsters. I enjoyed the show overall. There's certainly some episodes that are weaker than others, and it peaks at certain points, especially with the 50s flashback crew, which was the far more interesting storyline between the present and the past, if you will. But the present stuff did have Kurt Russell, and it did give us this really emotional finale. And, well, you know what? Let's go ahead and get talking about it. Let's do what I normally do, summarize these things, and we'll get into final thoughts shortly, because I got a lot to say. But anyway, so episode 10 opens up with Kate meeting her grandmother in the Axis Mundi, which is basically what we saw at the end of episode 9. And after this, she's a little bit struck by the fact that her grandma is still alive and seemingly hasn't aged a day. And then we immediately cut to the credits. So once the credits are done, we go to Hiroshi and Kentaro having a talk with each other in Tokyo. Kentaro asks him what he was doing, and so Hiroshi explains that he was using the Gamma simulator device to draw out a Titan in order to open a rift to prove that a network of them exists. He didn't know it was going to end up being Godzilla. He did this to prove to his parents that they weren't crazy, and if they weren't treated as such, then they would still be alive in his mind. Kentaro shares some resentment towards his father, but as they continue to talk with one another, his dad tells them that they should work together in order to help find the secret of coexistence between mankind and the Titans so that another G-Day type incident doesn't happen again. So we got that going on. Meanwhile, back in the Axis Mundi, Keiko explains to Kate that she sent out a signal that she could be found, which is what they saw in the last episode. And then May and Shaw end up finding their group. This ends up leading to one of the best scenes in the entire show, the reunion between Keiko and Lee Shaw. This scene here, it's just so beautifully done and emotional. Shaw at first is a little hesitant to show her his face and was hiding behind this tree because he knows how this reunion is not going to be easy for her. In Keiko's mind, she's only been down here for 57 days, but as we know, time functions differently within the Axis Mundi. So in terms of just a matter of moments, she has to process the fact that her husband is dead, her son grew up without her, and one of her closest friends, it turns out, is now an old man. At least with something like Interstellar, McConaughey knew something like this could happen ahead of time, but for her, it comes as a complete surprise. It's a very heartfelt reunion between the two, and we get some really good acting between Kurt Russell and Mari Yamamoto. I'll even admit that I got a little choked up watching it here. It's so beautifully done, so well handled, and one of the most emotionally impactful scenes in the entire Monsterverse or in any Godzilla film in general, because I like these two characters quite a bit. I love the 50 stuff and, you know, Kurt and her's reunion. It was a very touching scene, and I think we need more moments like this in the Monsterverse. Like, this is one of my top tier scenes it's just so good. So while this is going on, Kate also reveals to her that she is in fact her granddaughter. So back at Monarch headquarters, we see Tim having a talk with Verdugo about the signal they received, which was Keiko's signal, and how they need to look into it. But Verdugo tells him it isn't a priority due to the possible emergence event going on around the world. Tim has had enough about this. He's sick of Verdugo and her not doing anything about this potential signal going on down there. This was the moment he pretty much just was fed up with Monarch to the point where people could be alive down there and they aren't doing anything about it. He even tells her that Shaw was right about us. We're not really doing enough. We're just sitting on our hands just so it looks like we're doing something. I like how he stands up for himself here. It was a pretty good moment for him. And then we cut back to the Axis Mundi, where we see Keiko had reconfigured the gamma emitter from Lee's Operation Hourglass ship, which they intend to use as their means to head home. So while that's going on, Hiroshi, Emiko, and Kentaro have a conversation together where Emiko gives Hiroshi back her ring and tells him despite what he did to her that their son still deserves to have a relationship with his father. She clearly has a big heart here, and after what Hiroshi did to her was not very cool. Now, on a side note, Kate's mom Caroline does not appear in this episode, and if we do get a season 2, I kind of want her and Emiko to meet each other and find ways to get back at Hiroshi for what he did to them both, like, in the next season, if that's at all possible. So anyways, after this, Tim meets up with Kentaro, where they agree to work together with Hiroshi to find out more information about the signal that Keiko had sent out. This inevitably leads to them all working together, but with something that isn't quite Monarch, because after his conversation with Verdugo, and she's like, well, you can either sit back down and stay in your lane, or I'm going to fire you. And he's like, no, screw this, I quit. Granted, a lot of that happened off screen, but Tim had enough of Monarch and all the nonsense that they've been doing, and so he's going to take action because you have some people who are in real trouble, and they got to do what they can to help them out. So I like that, and we'll inevitably see which organization they join at the end of the episode. Back in the Axis Mundi, Keiko, Lee, Kate, and May take a break from carrying the Gamma Ray Simulator to Lee's ship, and we get a really nice scene that has Keiko and Lee talking with one another. He tells her about how Billy went down swinging and what he did with his Skull Island operation ended up saving Monarch, and he also talks to her about how the world has changed. Nice stuff, some funny moments right there, but some real heartfelt emotions on top of it. So they go there to Lee's ship from his Operation Hourglass mission. When they get there, Keiko is a little hesitant to go back home, given it's a world that she no longer recognizes, but Kate assures her that she still has work to do up there, and she inevitably decides to go with them. So they set up the Gamma device with their intention of luring a Titan to open a rift so they can piggyback their way back home, unknowingly knowing that the Ion Dragon was already down there in the Axis Mundi. So with the Ion Dragon there, he causes a ruckus. So Shaw goes outside the ship to fix the device, because something was also going through the rift at the same time, which turns out to be Godzilla, who gives one of the coolest entrances of all time, coming through this rift like he's Thanos or something. He ends up fighting the Iron Dragon. While short, it still is pretty cool. Godzilla destroys the shit out of this thing with relative ease. I mean, the Iron Dragon literally had no chance. I mean, he put up a good fight, but Godzilla just... He whoops this thing's ass. I mean, this thing spits acid on his face. Godzilla rips him apart, blasts him with his atomic breath. It's some really cool stuff. And I like, too, that when Godzilla comes through the portal, he seems to notice the group. So, in a way, he kind of knows that they're calling for help to save them, which makes him a little bit more heroic. And I like a good heroic Godzilla moment. It's kind of reminiscent of when he saved Millie Bobby Brown's character in King of the Monsters. So, as the portal starts closing, Lee is running outside the ship trying to get to it, and he kind of sacrifices himself in a way that mirrors what happened to, like, episode 1, where Keiko's trying to hold on to him. She's like, no, Lee, you gotta hold on. He knows that it's too heavy or he can't get in or whatnot, so he has to, like, let go, and he tells her, thank you for giving me this other chance in a way to kind of redeem himself so he can, like, if he does die, he dies peacefully, but his fate is left intentionally ambiguous. Now, we'll get into some speculation. I don't think he's dead, because you don't leave his fate ambiguous if you really wanted to kill him off. If you wanted to kill him off, you would outright show that he is dead. They are leaving it intentionally ambiguous, which tells me that Lee Shaw is going to be trapped in the Axis Mundi, maybe for quite a while. Perhaps he'll show up in a season 2 of Monarch, or maybe even in Godzilla Kong The New Empire. Wouldn't that be awesome? A surprise Kurt Russell appearance in Godzilla Kong The New Empire. I would love the hell out of that, but I don't know where it's going to end up going. So they end up making it back through the portal and are reunited with Tim, Kentaro, and Hiroshi, who are there waiting for them. The reunion is nice. Kentaro hugs both Kate and May, and he is then introduced to his grandma for the first time, and Hiroshi gets to see his mom once more, which was a nice character moment. It was well done, well handled. Not as emotional to me as the Shaw reunion, because I spent time with Shaw and I really cared about his character, but it was a nice moment where a son and a mother get to reunite with one another. It was a very touching bit. However, it turns out that when they return, 2 years have since passed, and the group is having been revealed to be working for none other than Apex Cybernetics. And they're not just on any place, they're on none other than Skull Island. Then the season ends with an alarm going off, and the final shot is of King Kong roaring into the camera, very reminiscent of the San Diego Comic-Con footage that was there for the announcement of Kong Skull Island many, many years ago. So, yes, we got a TV show where Godzilla and Kong appeared in the same episode, which I think is really, really cool and helps set the stage for Godzilla Kong The New Empire in a way, if you will. So, there you go. That was Season 1 of Monarch Legacy of Monsters, Episode 10. Easily, without question, the best episode of the show. I really love this thing. There was a lot of great emotional beats. The reunion between Shaw and Keiko, I thought, like, even without the monster stuff, that's a very good, heavy, powerful stuff. So that's the really compelling human element that I'd like to see more of explored in future Monsterverse stuff. Like, that moment there was one of my favorite moments, like, in the whole series, without question. I think, Like, even if you don't have the monster stuff in here, I think that's a compelling, like, character reunion scene. So Godzilla showing up, kicking ass, although short, was still pretty spectacular. I love the moment where he just walks through the portal, because it's something I haven't really seen Godzilla do before. Emerging through a portal like he's Thanos in Infinity War or Avengers Endgame or something, just walking through like nonchalantly. I wish we could have used some of that. I'm sure somebody will edit it together, maybe add Bear McCreary's music in there. But it was just a cool, like, cheerful Godzilla moment that I love more moments like that where I can cheer on Godzilla, so I thought that was kind of special. Really good stuff. Season 1, I thought overall was really solid. Definitely some episodes that were lesser than others. I think the strength of the show was mostly showcased with the 1950s flashback crew. I would have liked to have seen more of them. I don't think the modern characters are quite as good. Now, that's not to say I don't really dislike any of them, because I still like them for the most part, especially, like, you know, Tim. I did like Kentaro. Kate grew on me a little bit. May still has a lot of work to do if they do get a season 2 to make her more likable, because she's just not quite there yet as a character I care for, and that could change with the second season, because I've seen characters who I haven't necessarily liked in one season really turn things around in another, and that's what I'm kind of hoping for in season 2 if it does get greenlit. So some things I feel like season 2 could potentially go in. I think Lee Shaw is alive. You don't ambiguously leave his fate like that if you're going to kill him off, because he's pretty much just trapped in the Axis Mundi. I don't know how long it'll be before he can come back out, but I still say Lee Shaw is still alive, because you just don't leave him on that high note. You can't just get rid of your best character in your show like that. I think for right now, they did it, so if they didn't get a season 2, or if they couldn't really get Kurt Russell to sign on again for another season just yet, they're going to wait to see how it performs. So if he ever wants to come back, he can. I think given the character work and the awesome stuff that he got to do this season, I think he would definitely come back for a second season, or perhaps appear in a new Monsterverse movie. Yeah, come on, Kirk, come back for another season. You were just the best character by far. So I think Shaw is still alive. I think with season 2, it's going to be a little bit more Kong focused if they end up able to get to it, because they are now on Skull Island. We get some big reveals there with Apex having their own base on there, so they're the ones who I'm sure built the ecosphere which Kong lives in Godzilla vs. Kong. I know a storm swallows up the island, and there's still some ambiguity in terms of the continuity of how that all works within the Monsterverse, because I've heard a lot of contradicting things with that, so we'll see that potentially explored. Maybe we'll get to see Camazotz and all that's been showcased in some of the graphic novels, and the storm that inevitably took over the island. We also know how Apex was able to get their hands on some skull crawlers for their Mechagodzilla project, if you will, so that's pretty cool as well. There's a lot that can go on in that 2-year time gap. So, like, how did, like, relationships change over the course of the time? How is Kentaro different? How is Tim different? What do they think about having a rival organization to Monarch in Apex, which does work with Monarch at times, like as we've seen in Godzilla vs. Kong, but for some seemingly sinister stuff with Mechagodzilla. But at the same time, given how Monarch has acted in this series, and how it's been kind of all over the place, we get some of the nittier, grittier side of them. I mean, do you really like blame Apex for building Mechagodzilla with all the stuff that's gone on in the world? I don't think so. So that's some pretty interesting stuff. So I want to see which direction they can go in with season 2. We also have the fact that Keiko is going to be a fish out of water, and she's not going to have the same treatment as what happened with Shaw being kept in a retirement home for 20, 30 years, which was just the cruelest thing you could kind of do to this guy, instead of having him out there and learning and doing different things. So you got that going on there. And like I said, I think we're going to have a bit more of a Kong focus than a Godzilla focus into season 2, but they'll still find ways to work in Godzilla into the series, because he was part of the main selling point of the show for a lot of people. And while we didn't get too much Godzilla this season, which, I mean, the show's called Monarch Legacy of Monsters. It's not called Godzilla Legacy of Monsters. It's a show about Monarch, with Godzilla appearing as like a special guest at times. And when he does appear, it is really awesome. And it was also really cool to see Kong at the end. I kind of speculated that was something that was going to happen, but the fact that we got to see a TV show where both Godzilla and Kong appear in the same episode, how can you not smile at that sort of stuff? Like, that gives me a big ooey gooey grin. So yeah, lots of cool stuff. Now, before we close off for this, I do want to give my ranking of all 10 episodes where I go. So in the number 10th place, I'd go with episode 7. With the number 9th place, I go episode 5. In 8th place, I'd go episode 4. In 7th place, I go episode 1. In 6th place, I'd go episode 8. In 5th place, episode 2. 4th place, episode 3. 3rd place, episode 9. 2nd place, episode 6, and in 1st place, I'd put the finale, episode 10, as the top episode of Monarch Legacy of Monsters. There's a lot of stuff I really liked about it, for sure, in this season, and I'm excited to see where they could potentially go with a season 2. So they got to greenlight this, and they also got to greenlight season 2 of the Skull Island anime, because while this ending feels a little bit more, I mean, I know where it leads to in Godzilla vs. Kong and all that, and there's there's a lot of lingering plot threads you could definitely explore in this show. It's a more satisfying finale than the obligatory cliffhanger ending of season 1 of the Skull Island Netflix series. So Skull Island Netflix, finish off that storyline with at least one more season, and then for this one, I hope we can branch this out into a few seasons, and definitely want to see them bring back Lee Shaw in this, or potentially another movie. Wouldn't that be awesome if he just somehow showed up in Godzilla Kong: The New Empire? I really like the show. Definitely some high and low points for sure, but this was a really good time, and it was fun week to week covering a TV show with weekly episodes. And while it is fun to kind of get the binging mentality of all of it at once, I kind of liked having something every single week to kind of look forward to and speculate on again. It's been a while since I've really done that with the show. Not to say that every series needs to kind of do this, but for me, it was pretty exciting to have all those kind of spaced out a little bit. So, it gives me something to look forward to each week, is a new episode of Monarch. It was fun to talk about and speculate and theorize where things could go, and talk weekly with different people about it. I had a really good time with this thing. I love the show, and hopefully Apple renews this thing pretty fast, because it's been consistently up there as like Apple's top rated like show. Like when you go to their homepage, it's usually like trending at number 1 for the most part, if not like number 2, or at lowest like number 3 generally since the start of the series. It's only gained more as it's gone on. So, and a lot of people were waiting for it all to end to get Apple TV and kind of binge the whole thing. So lots to look forward to now that this show has finally wrapped itself up. Gonna take a little bit of a Godzilla breather, it seems, while we wait for Godzilla Kong: The New Empire, which drops in just over 2 months. That's right, because they moved it up from like 2 weeks earlier, so that's cool for me. I get to see it faster. Hopefully I can get an early screening or something like that, because that would be sweet. And I'm really excited. I can't wait for that movie. So what did you think of Monarch Legacy of Monsters episode 10? What did you think of the season overall? How would you rank the whole series in terms of episode to episode? Let me know in the comment section down below. What do you want to see in season 2? What do you want to see in Godzilla Kong: The New Empire? Let's talk about this stuff. Come on, it's been a fun time. But anyways, with that said, thank you so much to everybody who's been tagging along for all of my Monarch Legacy of Monsters reviews. I might do like a compilation video that just kind of combines these all together from like the first episode to the last, and just kind of like add it all together, because I figured, if you haven't seen the episodes, I could just kind of combine them all into one video, and we'll just kind of go from there. So also, does anybody want to see me do episode by episode like coverage of the Skull Island anime? Let me know in the comment section down below, because I did do like a spoiler discussion, but given that's only like 8 episodes and they're much shorter, I feel like I could break them down pretty quickly and then do a video review on each individual episode. I think that'd be kind of fun to do, because I had a really good time covering the Monarch stuff, and I'm still in a bit of a Godzilla mood, and I want to just go and explore more things. So what are you going to do? But anyways, that's all I have to say. As always, take care now. Bye-bye then, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace out, everyone.